But I like to give my brain a rest from the weed because it affects REM sleep,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that can lead to dementia eventually and whatnot. So yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, that's
that's
okay. Noted. Wow, that feels important.
yeah.
Welcome back to Blunt in the Bedroom. I'm here with Aurelie. My name's Patty, and we're recording from the cozy comfort of each of our bedrooms in the wildly wonderful legal cannabis state of Oregon. We're going to have a blunt and to be blunt. Maybe not blunt enough, maybe too blunt. You decide. So, our topic for tonight stems from where we really always end up when we talk. First, there's the propaganda, and then we realize it's the religion. It always comes back to religion. So, let's do this. Aurelie has gotten to know some missionaries from the Mormon church who come to her house once in a while, and she thought she would share what that discussion sequence has been like.
Okay, so yes, they come like randomly every like couple of Wednesdays or something like that. I don't know. They probably keep track of that somewhere. But they are really, really nice girls. I want to say that upfront, even though I disagree with all of their I'm gonna go ahead and say all of their beliefs. Like they believe you got to be meek and humble, that's like the way to God and all that stuff. Like I'm talking about that deep in the stuff I disagree with. But these girls are really nice and they're always open to have a conversation, even if you disagree with them. And I really appreciate that about them because not all Christians, well, not all religious people in general are like that. So I always ask, like, are you okay that like I disagree with this? Is it okay if I continue? I don't want it to be disrespectful. But they're always like, yeah, go ahead. And every time I tell them like what I believe, they say that it's beautiful and everything. So it's not even like my aunt is super Catholic, and if you say anything, even if it's Christian but not Catholic, she's like, you worshiping the devil. Like she will say that to you. She at one point I was going to a Baptist church and she's like, you can't do that. That's against God. Those people worship the devil. So the fact that these girls who are super religious aren't like that, I appreciate it.
Yep. Yep.
Um, what else? Like, I know at one point we talked about, well, I asked because I had been wanting to ask them for a long time because they have been coming for months at that point. And I wanted to ask if they believed that black, like to have brown, dark skin is the mark of Cain.
Hmm.
And so there was this particular visit, there was two white girls and one that was some sort of brown. I don't know if she was Mexican or native or mixed or what, but she looked like she was half white, half native, if that makes sense. So very
Sure.
barely brown kind of like kind of thing. So anyway, so the two when I asked them that, the two white girls were like, no, I've never heard of that. That's crazy. Like no one would believe that. And then but the brown girl was like, yeah, I did grow up believing that. And
Oh.
I grew up thinking that every time I have a well, she didn't say that she grew up thinking. She's just like, and a lot of times when I get angry at my siblings and I yell at them, like I think if that might be because I have dark skin, and like it was just so sad. And the other girls are looking at her like, what? But a friend made a good point the other day. I was telling her about this, and she was saying that they probably did all hear it growing up, but only one of them internalized it. The other ones were just, like it didn't even really register.
Such a good point. Or the other ones were like fragile about it, like, oh, well, we wouldn't do that because that'd be bad. So no, of course not.
Maybe.
I mean, I knew about there was a different one, Curse of Ham, and that was like among three Noah's three sons, I believe. It was like believed that somehow, because like how the heck do we get colors of people when it was down to eight eight people, Noah and his sons? Well, it's because they were apparently of all different colors, and Ham in the story had done something, and so I remember my mom saying something about that was the curse of Ham, and like that was why black people have been slaves, and like
Oh my God.
what the
Really?
actual fuck, yeah. I mean, I think it was kind of an old idea and it was just like a lingering thing when my mom told me. It wasn't an actively espoused or
Yeah,
practiced thing, but it was like still known of.
yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
I find it interesting that the curse would be melanin. Like the curse is the ability to spend time in the sun. I find that that alone. I mean, I think that if there is a mark of Cain, there's not a it's not a physical feature. I think it's more the sense of entitlement, violence, like that kind of thing. Like if I were really going to go
Ooh,
that route and believe the Bible, I would think
sure,
that would be more of a personality trait than anything. Narcissism, maybe, something like that.
sure.
But to think that the punishment would be the ability to spend a lot of time in the sun is silly to me.
Huh.
I read a book once. You might have heard of it, Ishmael. It's about a
Mm.
gorilla that can talk mind to mind. It was a long time ago where I read this book, but he was like this really wise gorilla. And at one point he was talking about they were talking about something in the book, him and this man that was like interviewing him or something. And somebody brought up that the mark of Cain has to be white people because wherever white people go, genocide follows.
Oh,
I
dang.
was like, oh, again, I don't think that the mark of Cain would be a physical feature. I think that's
Sure.
absurd. I believe in evolution. I believe white people were white because they, evolved in caves and the rest of us evolved outside. Like, you know what I mean? Something like that to me is what it would have to be. Because
Yes.
honestly, if we were both stuck in a cave, you would do way better than I would. You know?
Well, that's because white people literally look like naked mole rats. You ever seen them? If they have a race, it's white. They're white. They're white. And so it makes 100% sense. Like, I think that's proof positive right there that what you say is correct, that white people evolved in caves. I'm here for it.
Yeah. I mean,
We,
some
you
people
know what
say
though? We
no,
still have
but I
eyes
think,
though. So maybe not.
but eyes that are light
That's true.
and I've thought about this a lot actually. And the if you go outside with light eyes, the sun actually affects you worse, even if it's contacts. Because I had great contacts at one point, and the sun was so much brighter. Like I would tear up because of it. So it's super inconvenient to be in the sun when you're white.
Yeah, I
But you
can
could
vouch
probably
for
see
that.
better in the dark. I mean, I don't know if that part, I don't know if it's true, but
Yeah, I don't
maybe.
know. That well, that would be interesting to find out. But I mean, isn't it so funny because the things we're talking about is so obvious that the reason they're all different is just because of like where on the planet the population they came from like spent the most time.
Yeah.
You know, it's all like latitude, you know?
It really is. And I think I wish that they would explain it that way in schools.
Right?
That people like kids can understand. And whenever there was an incident at my kid's school, somebody wrote the N word on a wall, and I went to talk to the principal about it because I was kind of freaked out, to be honest. My kid is one of like three black kids in her school, so I was kind of freaked out. So anyway, I went to talk to the principal, and he was like super horrified that this thing happened. But he was trying to get feedback. He was like, "What do you think I should do?" Like I'm kind of at a loss. Like he was genuinely horrified. I kind of felt bad for him. I actually really did feel bad for him because it wasn't his fault, and he handled it very well. So I'm not, but the fact that he asked, that's what I told him. I was like, I think you should explain it in a way that we evolved to have certain features because of where like our ancestors evolved from. I even think that the greasy hair is insulation because
I
you
love
fry
this.
outside with greasy with oil fries. Oil gets changed temperature really fast, so you'd fry as you spent time in 110-degree blazing heat.
Ugh.
I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, I put a lot of thought into this because I like evolution.
Okay, so it's super aside, but I just like somehow I weirdly love the idea that there was a time when there was like ice separating humans in lower latitudes from humans in more upper latitudes that were surviving up there, you know? And the
Mhm.
idea that one at one point, like one spring, fairly quick climate change is happening because we do know that has happened in the past naturally as well. I just imagine like a valley clearing out of all of its ice. And then all of a sudden, there's people looking in the distance and they realize there's like other people who were across the ice before. And then they like get together and they're all like super different. Wouldn't that be awesome? As long as they
Yes, I
didn't all
love
kill
that.
each other. as long as they were all peaceful, that's my idyllic vision there. It's peaceful.
And the way I see it is peaceful and happy too. Curiosity, like when
Yeah.
you bring a new cat in the house and it kind of has to smell its way and.
Yeah.
But if you approach it too fast, it's gonna hiss. Like that's how I see it happening.
Yep.
I
Yep.
love that. I hope that's really how it happened.
Back to the conversations you've had with the it was Mormon, right? Mormon.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mormon missionaries.
I mean, I do find it interesting that in just, a couple of minutes there, you and I can discuss the world in such a way where we feel in awe of it
Mm-hmm.
and like that it's beautiful and like kind of in awe that we're a part of it too. Like because we can acknowledge the shit all day, but I don't think they have that clarity of being able to see, that like they look at things as good and evil, but like in a way that doesn't make sense, in a way that they're actually maybe missing out on the true beauty of the things we know about our world and can see in our world.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. Are they finding beauty in it? I don't know.
I
I,
think they do, but they explain it away with God versus with science the way we would. What do you call it? The people that come to your door, Jehovah's Witness. A Jehovah's Witness lady came and she was, the same thing as they always do. And I was telling her that I don't really believe in God. And she was like, "What do you mean? Look how beautiful the grass is. Everything is so beautiful. You have to believe in God." And I thought that was the most ridiculous reason for me. Like of all the arguments she could have made, that was probably the least likely to change my mind. But whatever, she believes what she believes. But my point is that whereas I would explain that with like photosynthesis and whatever, she explains it with God.
yeah, sure. I think it's just a placeholder for what we don't know
Yeah.
because God keeps changing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for the Hebrews, I feel like I've said this on some podcast before, but for the Hebrews, their God was like right there with them. Like it was a very earthly bound type God because there was like other gods that he fought and stuff. And there was a time when there was something he couldn't do. And then it's like, as we learn that, oh, up in the sky isn't where God lives, it's where all these particles are, and we know how the clouds move and all the. And so,
Yeah.
okay, well, now God gets bigger. So now in most Christian realms, God is outside of time and space. Okay, well, guess we can't disprove that one. So good job. Made it non-falsifiable.
And
Done.
honestly, that's the only thing that I've somebody told me that once. And that if I were ever going to change my mind, that would have been the argument to make with me. Not that the grass is green because God. It was like some people believe, and actually I have friends that are like super involved in the church and everything, and she believes that God is just like something else. Like he's like evolution is real because God like made it happen. I get that. I mean, I don't agree with it still, but I can see how that would be a thought, a
If that's like
comforting
a
thought.
deist type thing, but I don't understand how that idea, like if you're like, oh, some general unknown deity, well, that deity is not really involved in our lives then. And then it's like, so if it's not, if you want to say it specifically, the Christian deity, the Christian God, how do you get to that? If you make it so vague and then you still try to say it's this one Yahweh character that was in that
That's
book.
human. That's the part of it that it's like a human type. Like I think that is really arrogant to believe that God would be like us. If he
Well,
rules over the whole universe like that, it could be any species or anything. It could just be
and
a ball of energy, which is what I believe.
it's funny how our deities have always had they exhibit our best and worst qualities.
Yeah.
I think for a long time deities were given these stories of how horribly they behaved because it was almost a way to excuse the leadership that was behaving badly,
Hmm.
but had everybody under their thumb. It's like it just took this form of another shadow of what we're experiencing. Because if it happens on the cosmic realm, well, then that's the true order of things. And so you maybe question less, fight less. I'm not sure. Rebel less.
I remember one of the missionary girls said one time that whenever someone does something bad, actually this is more than once that they've said this, it's the devil. Like it's or I don't know if it's the devil itself, but it's like it's not them. It's like there are no bad people. It's just like evil makes I don't know if it's the devil or whatever they believe is like, because I don't know if they believe in hell. Um,
Mm.
but like basically that gets, I think it is that like the like devil or whatever equivalent they have that's making people do it. There's no bad people. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one because no, some people are just bad people.
You
And
know what? I
sometimes
would
people do
disagree
things
with
like,
you.
really? You do?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
we gotta
because
talk about
I
this
would.
because
So I'm all right. So I'm going to be more on the Mormon side, except instead of the devil, I call it trauma. And I think that there are no bad people, there are only traumatized people.
you know these psychopaths are real?
Well, okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Okay, so not just trauma. I will fully accept that that needs to be broadened. So, okay, so those are like actually a born-in wiring problem.
Yes.
But is it always? Because I could see that there could be a wiring like mismatch, whatever happening with the wiring that makes like a predilection towards something. But
Mm.
I do know there are people who are fully psychopaths, but they like realize they are and they get help and they like are able to manage their symptoms and put on their behavior fronts because they like understand that their natural behaviors would be unacceptable and they are able to like ameliorate themselves while still being psychopaths.
Or
But
fulfill their like their desires in a positive way. Some people believe Schindler from Schindler's List, like
uh-huh.
their real man was a psychopath.
Oh,
So isn't they're not necessarily all evil, but some are.
right.
And
So that's making my point that what if, the worst of the psychopaths, it's because they were that wiring. And what if we could catch that wiring, understand it more, and understand that it could be the Schindlers of the world?
yeah. I mean, I fully agree with that, with getting that research. And I think that's important. And I actually don't understand why there isn't more research done on how to fix like narcissistic brains. And because narcissism is a little different. You're not born a narcissist. You they don't develop the brain chemicals of an adult or something like that. Um, but there should be more research done. But I think that narcissists rule the world. So I think that there's never going to be any, like, these people that are really fucked up are the ones that rule the world.
Yes. I was just watching I believe it's the church that my mom goes to. It's the Restored Church of God. This guy, it's like a copycat church of the one I grew up in. This guy sits there. He sounds like a yelling, abusive husband from the pulpit. It is impossible to think anything else. I
Hmm.
mean, but like mixed with preacher, I don't know. It's so gross and so controlling. I actually broke down and cried a little bit because I hadn't really considered the situation my mom's in.
Mm-mm.
Like the gravity of it. I don't think
Yeah.
because I kind of just think this is something of old, weird, old ideas. Haha, they're fading. And it's like, wait a second, that is fucking people up right now.
Yeah. Have you watched any of the Mormon like the FLDS documentaries?
I haven't. Mm-mm.
The way like it's crazy. Like how bad it is, how the men like how they do it and they swallow it. I don't want to judge them the same way I don't want to judge the missionaries, even though they disagree. They're born and like literally conditioned intentionally from infancy. I'm talking about the FLDS. The
Hmm.
girls that are
Yeah.
the girls that come here, I don't think that they're that. I'm pretty convinced they're not that level of it. And actually, I talked to them about that too, about the FLDS, and they were like, no, like all of that is no, like we don't agree with any of that. I even was like, well, if somebody wants to marry multiple spouses, it's their business. And they were like, no, we don't do that.
I like how civil society is starting to be like, maybe it is okay after being like horrified at polygamous.
Have you seen the show Big Love?
No, but I've heard of it.
So the way that they do polygamy, and they are Mormon, but the way they do it, it was consenting adults doing it. Everyone involved was consenting. They raised their kids together. I can see how that might be controversial, but it works. You know what I mean? Like I think it can work. My issue with the FLDS and their polygamy is that they marry off 9-year-olds.
Oh,
And even if they are adult at some point, they're not, their brain chemicals weren't allowed to develop in a way that they can consent.
yes.
So, that's where my issue is. Because with the other one, like they had jobs and everything. Like they were part of society. One of the wives was a teacher. Like it was to me, that's very different.
Yeah. Oh, was that the Sister Wives show? I watched some of that one.
No, this one was a show, like a fictional show.
Oh,
Sister
okay,
Wives, I
okay.
think, is a docuseries.
Yes. And that one was, they were more modern people, where the guy was like an advertising agent or exec or something. And here he's living the life with three wives. And I think he had just gotten a fourth one who lived in a different house or something. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah. I've heard about the show. I can't watch it. That guy is very weird to me, the
Oh, he
husband.
seemed really smarmy. Yeah.
Like his energy is very repulsive to me. Like he's like green slime.
Ah, I agree.
So I just can't.
Oh my
um,
gosh. Yeah.
but okay. So let's move on.
I guess the other little prompt that I was thinking about for tonight was the idea that, or my hot take, that missionary work was basically an arm of colonialism. And I mean, I'm so
Yep.
steeped in this idea now, I don't feel like I'm saying something controversial even, but I do think there are people who would not agree with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the people that are doing it really are convinced that all they're doing is spreading the word of Jesus, and Jesus is good and loves everybody and will accept them with open arms. And we're doing all this hero work. Look at us. I have spoken to these people before. That one of them, my brother-in-law's ex, she went to Africa. And I remember seeing pictures of her on Facebook, like these little, African kids all excited and happy and like everybody smiling in the picture. And she's like, these babies just found the or just found the word of the Lord or some shit like that. And then all the comments were like, you're doing such good work. And I was like, no, I didn't say anything because I could see why she felt that way. In the same way that I could see why people like are against abortions that are really religious. And I can see it in that way. I understand how that thought process happens, but that shit is conditioning from early age and it's fucked up. And they're looking
Mm-hmm.
at the whole picture.
Oof. Yeah, I find that horrifying. It makes me want to scream. You leave those children alone and let them have their culture. Like, get your hands off.
For
Gross.
real. And like, if they're going to do something, right? If you have this budget to go help African children, like, that's not the way to do it. Like, because you could go over there and do good work, like go build houses after a flood or whatever. There's plenty of things that can be done,
Oh,
but to
sure.
push your like beliefs on someone else, on like a whole group that's already, oh my gosh, already so much colonization, and they're still doing it. I
Oh
find
my
this super
God.
horrifying.
Okay, so I was an evangelical for about 10 years. So that was Assemblies of God and other various evangelical things. And during that time, I went down to Argentina for a missions trip. I mean, it's preach the gospel to the lost, right? So, okay, I'll go down there. But it was like a service one. So we were going to be like building something or whatever. That sounded good to me. Well, so it was a Christian college where we were doing work for free to remodel the bathrooms in their buildings, which is good. But then that was Christians going down to help other Christians. And then we did go out with them to do their street missionary work. And what they did is they had a space where they would bring kids who were living on the street in to this church space and make them sit through a whole sermon before they fed them dinner of fucking Uncrustables and some cracker pack. Nope.
Oh no.
Nope. While we went out for steak and potatoes.
Oh
Fuck,
no.
fuck all the way off. Yeah, there you go. Thanks for
There's
your help.
one in college. I remember there was someone that came to talk to us, or to talk to the college, like to do like a TED talk, but just like a little college one. Anyway, he was talking about how when he started his environmental work, he went out to do something in like Ethiopia or something like that, like building houses or something important, something environmental, important thing. But he was like, these people were all living in shacks and just needed so much, and they put me up in a mansion, basically, like this
Oh
huge
my
house. He
God.
showed pictures of it. He was like, this budget could have gone to that, and he was like, I try to convince him, but it doesn't work that way. Like you gotta allot certain thing for housing or whatever, whatever. This is why I don't dislike nonprofits. I just think that we got to be careful with them because it's weird the way that the money has to work.
Yeah, well, that's money. Money's fucking everything up.
But he could have stayed in a regular hotel. Like if it was me, I would have
Yeah.
just in a because I'm not trying to live in a shack. Like that's no, it's never going to be me. Absolutely not. But like a regular hotel
Hmm.
would be significantly less money than that, or
Right.
like a little RV that I have to myself. I'm just not sleeping outside.
Right.
No.
Right. Well, I mean, this problem is not just in religious spheres either, because I mean, we really can't separate the religious stuff from the colonizing
Yeah.
capitalistically driven stuff, right? Because even the do-gooders that are existing within the capitalistic system, namely the Peace Corps, my friend Michaela, she is a 71-year-old transgender woman who's been doing amazing work in the world for decades. But she, when identifying as a man, to avoid getting sent to Vietnam, joined the Peace Corps, got sent to Nicaragua, basically to go to all the villagers and to extract $24 from them for the hookup to the new water system that the Peace Corps was doing there. Well, they made $167 a year. Most people didn't have shoes, as she tells the story. And
Oh,
she was sent there by the Peace Corps on a peace work, whatever, to extract that money. What the fuck? So she figured it out. That trip, she was like, oh, okay, my country is making everybody else poor and it's for their greed. So,
yeah.
so she was never the same, and that has driven her throughout.
It's interesting how everybody wakes up different from different experiences, but I feel like we all have that moment, and that was probably hers.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
everything
historically, the Peace Corps is
changed.
known as being, like this great organization that goes around doing all this good around the world, and but it's
Yeah.
more complicated than that.
Everything is Mother Teresa. Let's get into that.
Oh,
She's purported as this amazing woman, right?
supposed to be a saint.
Yeah, a fucking saint, an actual fucking saint. Yeah, you know what she did? All the money that she got, it went to the Catholic Church. And she thought it was good that all these people would suffer because
Yeah.
suffering is of the Lord. What?
But whenever she was, sick and dying, she took medication and stuff. Like she was treated comfortable, like kept comfortable. I read that somewhere.
Someone made a comment on another one of my podcast things today. It was something about they think that the media is the biggest problem of it all. And in some respects, they're right because we've got capitalism and the money stuff going on. We've got religion, which is, controlling at least a segment of the population or some of their money and, ways of thinking. But kind of with fingers in and around it all is the media.
Yeah. I think the media is another tool, like religion was for a long time. That's how you spread the word that they wanted. Now they have media to spread the word. It's all
But
propaganda.
it is. Well, and media is doing the bidding not only of capitalism, religion, and their own political needs.
There's going to be a tool at some point similar to media where we're going to all be microchipped and they're going to be able to just inject tools into or different ideas into us that way because
As
it's all
long as,
moving with modern, like with the times.
yeah. I mean, honestly, for me, as long as if they're going to microchip me for that, as long as they can also upload like the ability to speak French when I want to, I'm here for it.
I don't know. I
Uh,
think that once they can do that, it's the end. It's officially like we need to just go away. Like
no, no,
humans
no,
have officially become the most malignant cancer there is.
no, that's when we become not humans anymore. That's when we become like hybrid entities with the robots.
That's the end. The end of the rest of the planet.
Um,
And probably others too, because they're already talking about moving us to Mars or something crazy.
this is good. This is good. You know what though? I know we've been like a little more silly and out there, but I do think that it's going to be important before we go today to talk about especially Christian foreign missions in the United States and Canada, I think. But I came in contact with that like American narrative uh, when I lived in California as a fourth grader. We all had to choose one of the California missions, like the building structure, to recreate, to build a miniature of, and to do a report on. And so there we were just casually doing these reports, and they're beautiful buildings, right? They're historic and gorgeous and all of that, but they were re-education centers for the indigenous populations,
Hmm.
right? And like Mexicans that were living up there, because that had been Mexico at the time. And it's just so weird how they can have fourth graders nonchalantly make these little reports in buildings and not really think about, oh, that was like destroying a culture right
Yeah.
there. But that was a long time ago, and we weren't talking about those things yet, but I think we should now. And that
Yeah.
is the propaganda of Christianity intertwined with the building of this country that took away all those other cultures.
Yeah. All over the world too. I also think
Yes.
that that's important to remember because that shit started in like Europe didn't used to look like it looks now. Like Ireland didn't used to be what it is. Like all that culture that they just eliminated all over the world, I think is fucked up and we should definitely all acknowledge it so we won't make the same mistakes.
Did you want to talk maybe about like the indigenous schools or anything?
I went to a museum in Pendleton, Washington. I think I told you about it before. It's really good. And they talked about it. And
Oh.
and I've also heard stories on like social media and stuff about how much dead bodies they found and just cutting their hair and they could no longer because their hair for a lot, probably not all of the cultures, but for some of them their long hair was like they needed it for navigation and all kinds of stuff like that.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, so when they cut it off, it like through the like it affected them in a big way.
Yeah, the whole indigenous schools thing just makes me the most angry. I like more angry than I can put into artwork or anything, honestly. And I'm upset that our country's not doing anything to acknowledge it because Canada is.
Are they?
I believe so. Yeah, they have a day that's like wear an orange shirt or something like that, and it's like a Remembrance Day.
Hmm.
And there's been like a whole bunch of protesty things. Been the symbol where it's like the red hand on the
Oh,
face.
yeah.
Yeah.
I donate to them actually on Christmas.
Oh, cool.
It's the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's group. I
Oh,
don't know if
that.
that, you know what? I know that they also use that red hand. They may not be the only ones, but
Oh,
yeah,
good point.
because they're
Yeah.
still getting killed at a really high rate. Like a lot of them are like super disproportionately are getting like kidnapped and raped and murdered,
Yes.
and no one said like they go completely just unnoticed.
Let us hope that it is the ending frequency of like whatever gross energy that devalued those lives so
Yeah,
much for so long.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's really fucked up. But it's to me the one part that I find to be kind of interesting and infuriating, and another thing that I think we should pay more attention to is that at one point those schools were progressive because there was a point where they people believed they should just all die. So at one some point that those schools were like, well, let's give them a chance. They are, they're people too. Like I could hear the arguments in my head too. Like these are people too. We need to, help them immerse themselves in the correct way of living. We can help them not be savages. Like I can hear those types of arguments that could have been made to make that progressive thinking. The reason I think that we should pay attention to that part of it is because a lot of things that might be considered progressive now, we should still dissect. That's why I think
Yeah,
critical thinking comes in involved like into play with all these things.
such a great point. So this is a question from one of our fans, Joel. He says, burning question. I'm listening to your Spotify thing and you talk about braids. I got cornrows when I was in the Bahamas and I've been wanting to get them again. Do you feel that to be appropriation? And if so, why? The reason I ask is because kilts are not seen as appropriation by Scots people and people all over the world sew them. So I was wondering about things like that. I also had black friends of mine think it would be great to try dreads and things, so I was wondering your take.
That's a good question. So I don't think that it's appropriation to get it done in the Bahamas because that's like you're enjoying the culture there and everything like that. I think it could be seen as appropriation here. However, I don't think like I to me it's only an issue when you look down at those hairstyles when someone else has it. You know what I mean? Like if a black person wears those hairstyles, then it's less attractive or not professional or whatever, and then you put it on as a costume. So that's my opinion about it. I
Yes.
don't think though that if someone already is like doesn't have an issue with black culture and things like that, then I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay. And you
That's
often
yeah.
talk about that there's like European braiding styles also for European
Oh
hair.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Cool.
they are pretty different though. Like cornrows are
Oh,
very different than the what like Vikings used to wear.
oh yeah. Okay. So cornrows and dreads are definitely not European braiding styles.
Well, see, the dreadlocks they can be, but I know there's a difference, but I can't tell. So for
Okay.
me, I'd never like like to me if somebody wants to get locks, I don't even think about it because I don't understand the difference. To me, they look the same. Well, the black ones are smaller and neater, I think, than I think the Viking locks were bigger. I could be wrong though.
Yeah. Well, I have heard they're different, at least from the standpoint that they like the way the hair fibers work into that, essentially a felted rope
Yeah.
is different. Like the way just because of the structure of the hair fibers.
I would expect it to be because for black people, their hair is already very, very curly. So you really just
Yeah.
kind of follow the curl pattern all the way down. And then after a while, it just kind of stays like fused together.
Oh, sure. Huh.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would think that it would be different of techniques of how to do it and like how to maintain it too.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I
No,
actually don't
I
know how white people keep dreads in their hair because their hair is straight. So how does it stay? Do they have to put wax? Like I don't understand.
I think you have to tangle it the fuck up. Because
Oh, okay.
Because like my hair has this ability to get really big rat's nests in it. Like if I was not brushing at all, it would be
Yeah.
this big ball of hair where it was, like you would be picking it out one hair at a time. So I think you're having to basically do that. Whatever is happening in that scenario is what's happening in the dreads, which is why they're not super tiny.
Okay. That
It's
makes
just
sense.
it's just matted. Artfully matted. I think.
I mean, that makes sense.
Because I
Um,
think it like breaks the fibers a little bit to where like it's not just the smooth strand of fiber of the hair. It's got like little curly, like the little scaly curly edges on it are kind of coming up. And so then I think those all catch each other and that's how you get them all.
okay.
That's what
That
I
makes
think.
sense.
I mean, I'm making that up, but that's how I think it happens.
I love when people ask questions like that. Like I was watching one video of this guy. It was a black like basketball player or something. Um, and it was a white family there. And the little girl, so everybody was trying to act, like appropriate questions or whatever. And the little girl just was like, "Are you scared of white people?" And the parents looked horrified, but the guy just started laughing. He's like, "This is why I love talking to kids." And so the way he explained it, in a very like child appropriate way and everything, but yeah, it was so interesting to see because she just asked it. She was like, "Are you scared of white people?"
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah, I wish if I come across that video again, I'm gonna send it to you because his answer was really good. I would have never
Okay.
thought to explain it that way.
I love that. Oh, kiddos just trying to
Ooh,
figure out this world.
yeah. So
That's
apparently
just
there's scholarly research that links missions to cultural genocide. I don't understand why we would even need that. Is it just us because we think about these things already? But to me, it's like, why does it even need to be studied? It's clear. It's clear it happens here and it
yeah.
happened everywhere. I mean, there
Right.
were hangings of witches. That is cultural genocide.
Yep.
They couldn't feel safe doing what they did, just like the brown people. That, it's the same thing, the same
It's
idea.
true. Right. The out group. It's the out group.
So they had to, for their children's safety, they had to raise them to believe the same thing that the colonizers believe.
Yep.
So it just keeps spreading that way, right? Because no one's going to want their kid to be in danger. Like it's the same thing. The same reason that so many people had to be Catholic and these other religions came out, like the 21 divisions and hoodoo and all these things, because they mixed the colonizer, the native, and then the African. They had to mix it all together, but they had to paint a picture of Christianity or Catholicism specifically.
Yeah.
So certain saints just got linked to, certain ain't like other things or whatever. And eventually though, it just kind of fell off because, again, you got to raise your kids to be the way that they're going to be accepted.
Well, right. In a world where there's no like way to have a voice or drive change or anything, you're just, especially as a woman,
Yeah.
women would have had even less choice in the matter, being herded around, literally herded around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that people still don't see the witches thing because a lot of people still have these negative, ideas of witches or whatever. But I do think that that should be acknowledged as a cultural genocide.
I agree with you. And if you look at who those witches were, I mean, they were like the cunning women of the towns. They were the ones who helped people, right? They could actually
Yeah.
have tinctures and things like they had gathered wisdom from mothers from generations before. It's not like, ooh, the weird witch in the woods. It's like, are you guys kidding me? Like, no, these are the people who are left who still had some of the old knowledge.
Yeah.
And
But
they
they had too
were,
much power. Knowledge is power. And you already know how that goes. That
yeah.
had to be removed and given to someone else, the men of that time.
I wonder if there's also something euphemistic in the whole witches thing, and it wouldn't surprise me if it went with the women who had the medicinal knowledge, if they were
Mhm.
also a little bit the rabble rousers.
Can you imagine if this like flaw in humanity didn't happen, how far advanced we would be if all of that knowledge hadn't have been erased, if the libraries hadn't been burned, if hadn't been eliminated?
Yep.
Like we'd be so much more ahead, and because of the wisdom of like the native people, we
Hmm.
wouldn't have caused as much damage to the planet.
Wow. Yeah. No, you're totally right because they were part of the ecosystem, and I think that's a
Yeah,
piece that we miss, or like America misses, is that it wasn't just like, oh, they lived here and took care of it. It was like, no. They were as much a part of the ecosystem as the buffalo that they like helped to migrate because they actually did. They like cultivated where the forests were and stuff so that it would push the buffalo in certain areas so that they could set up their cyclical method of
yeah.
maintaining a herd that fed them. I mean,
And prairies are completely made from it was the native people that used to manage the burns. And it happened for so
yes,
long that there are species that specifically evolved to live in prairies.
that makes sense.
And now there's only like, I think it was something like 2% of what was originally prairie land. So I think the Oregon state bird, the checkered something I want to say, is there. I mean, they're running out because of that, because there's so little prairie
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And again,
Wow.
this happened all over the world. Like a lot of like people knew how to live with the land,
Yeah.
Mexico and all that stuff, and then it's all being gotten rid of.
It's so hard to understand why white Europeans, I would say stemming from, Roman power actually though, why that was so opposite to the way seemingly so many other populations lived. Like other populations fought among themselves and fought
Yeah.
over resources and things too, but like the inability to like look around and understand the patterns and try to work within it, I don't understand. Unless we want to like say Atlantis was real and there's some muscle memory in some population of like a giant catastrophe. So why would you work on the cycle when the cycle can be interrupted? Instead, we must fight back on this land that sometimes is, you know, floods or fires or whatever against us. I don't know. I can't think what would crack
I actually think it
within.
goes back to religion
Okay.
because I think that they didn't want to use logic because logically they wouldn't have gotten rid of the people that were already here. They had to make this all like these people are against God, they're savages, they had to like justify it in that way because otherwise murder is supposed to be wrong. So, you know what I mean? Like I think that I still think that religion has a lot to do with colonization. Like I think it's a very big tool. And it's how you would convince the masses in that
Yeah.
way that it was acceptable. Like this is the Lord's will.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But the thing is, they had to scare them first. I don't see how else they could do it, right? They had to like come in with like firepower to convince the people that their God was superior to whatever practices they'd been doing, right? And it was artillery that convinced them of that. And so this God had cannons. I mean, right? That's a powerful God. I guess you do gotta abandon your old beliefs and get behind that.
Yeah. It's all so sad.
It's so sad. I was looking it up and it looks like colonialism came in and it like took away language, the culture, and obviously therefore the identity. The UN is estimating that like at least half of all of the languages spoken by indigenous people are going to be extinct by 2100.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised it wasn't there already, to be honest. When I was reading it, I was like, oh, really? We still had that many? Jeez. But
Well,
w
my
what do we
indigenous
don't even
roots,
know that we have already lost?
my indigenous roots, the Taino Arawak people are were they some people believe that it's the one or one of the few true genocides. Like it was actually like they completed the genocide. And there's the reason I don't have any tattoos from there is because I can't trust that it's what we think it means. So for all I know, I'm going to be putting
Oh.
toilet on my ass or something. Um, but it just got rid of so fast that we can only guess. And there's so few
Oh.
things that are still around. But within 200 years, I think it was 100 years actually, they managed to get rid of all of them.
Oh my God. Well, yeah. I mean, during the time of the sugar plantations, I remember reading that the average lifespan was like 23 years because they were worked so hard.
Yeah. If they didn't complete certain things, they chopped their hands off that day and still made them go to work. Have you read the Howard Zinn? Howard, do you know what I'm talking about?
I
The
know what you're
Untold
talking.
Stories of the United States or something like that? The People's History of
Uh,
the United States?
I don't remember if I've read it. I read the Indigenous People's History. I don't think I've read the Howard Zinn one.
Yeah, it's the like big history of the United States.
Yeah.
But the way he does it is with actual journal entries. So this is real history. It's
Yep.
undiluted, and I could not get past 3 pages because the first thing was whenever they first got there, it wasn't the Arawak. That's where they started, where the ships, they first colonized, and the horrible ways that they were treated. Like so many people were just like, I can't watch it. Like it's just that fucked. Like there's this one story where I think it was like a pastor or something was talking about these two women that were walking around and this little native boy had a parrot on his shoulder and they wanted it. So they took it, of course, but they also chopped off the boy's arms.
What the fuck?
Yeah, right, just right
There's,
there, just like it was nothing.
I don't, the thing is, a society of people that can do that are not like, I can't even think that they're the same, like, how did they can't be the same kind of people as us? Like, obviously they weren't though, right? Like, everything they had seen in their life made that. I don't know if it was acceptable, but it's what it was.
It was acceptable because I mean, notice that the people that wrote the journal entry didn't agree with that. No one liked it, but it was allowed. Same way that cops are allowed to murder people now. Like I don't think it's as unfathomable as we think. It's just acceptable. It's something that at the time it was legal. These were not even considered animals because I don't know that it would have been considered okay to just walk around and cut dogs' paws off out of nowhere.
Oh my fucking God. I mean, but it was a time when food was being, chickens right there, and that's how you ate your chickens. So, I mean, there was and birthing women would have struggled with that a lot. And so that, I do think it was a time when there was a lot more death visible
Yeah,
in front of people, but yikes,
yeah,
to be that callous to it. And
exactly.
the othering. It's the othering. It's they're like to think that little boy was so not valuable. Oh
Yeah.
my fuck. Okay. I'm
I know I'm telling you, I could not make it past the first, it wasn't even a whole chapter. I couldn't do it. To this day, that was like 5 years ago that I bought this book and I couldn't get past that. But they do have the young people's history and like things that are more easy. We studied those in for homeschool and also the indigenous one too. Those are the ones that are designed for children, I feel like they're still very interesting and very true and all that stuff, but they're easy. They don't have direct those kind of stories from someone's journal article that saw it happen or
without like
journal entry.
fully getting secondhand trauma from it.
I mean, I think about it and I'm just like, it's, to me, it's not really that far removed. Maybe that's why, because it's not. Because, like I said,
Mm,
like the cop thing is still happening. So the fact that this
yeah,
it's the same reason I can't watch the Jeffrey Dahmer docuseries or the show or whatever. Like, I can't. It's just too real.
I did watch that one.
You did?
Yes,
How was it? Oh, I can't. That whole story is just, I can handle a lot of serial killer stuff, but that one, the fact that all the victims were black, I just,
yes.
it was just too like personal for me.
There was a religious aspect to Jeffrey Dahmer's thing. And then he
Yeah.
like got Jesus in prison or something too. Yeah, there was some messed up. Yeah, it's just suffused throughout it.
There are
Good
people that
time.
go to bed listening to murder podcasts.
Yes, yeah.
I wonder about those people sometimes. I'm like, do people know they should be scared of you? Like a little bit like, how do you find that relaxing? But then I heard like a therapist on like Instagram or something talk about people that find comfort in listening to that should really dissect their own trauma because why is trauma comforting to you? Like something had to
Oh,
be like you had to have had trauma in your life or something that is unresolved or maybe not resolved. I mean, if that makes them feel better, it's not like they're out there killing people. Like, go ahead and do what need to do. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like it should be unpacked of like, why is that comforting?
I agree. I think there is but I think it might be, it's the complex PTSD type, right? The like
Yeah.
slow, repetitive type trauma. And so, because when I was a kid, I thought reading the Reader's Digest, like rescue or, like rescue at 3,000 feet or, those kinds of stories. I just thought that was great. And I guess maybe it's traumatic and I thought it was, well, and Unsolved Mysteries. God, we watched some really gross things. But like
Yeah.
I,
I used to
I
like that show.
maybe yeah, we've talked about that before. Maybe it's because of the low grade trauma that like it was almost like feeling something, to interact with these bigger trauma stories
Yeah.
because I have to numb out so much from just everything being scary all the time because of what I believed the world was.
Yeah. Because you believe the world was ending.
Yeah.
That
And
has
we
to be
were,
terrifying if you're just out
well,
here just like at the end of your days.
but also when it's the only thing
Yeah.
then it's just normal, and that's weird.
Yeah.
Well, it's just normal, and then you're sitting there like looking around like everybody else is just living like life's okay and everything is going to go on, and they're happy and smiling. Wah, wah. And you kind of wish you could grow up. And when you're 9, you beg your mom to be able to wear nylons because you might not get to be a big fancy lady who wears nylons.
Oh.
And then you become a big lady and you're not fancy and you would not put nylons on if you were forced. That's why. So, Aurelia, this was the last one of our season.
Oh, wow.
So, thanks everyone for joining us for this third season of Blunt in the Bedroom. We'll be back in actually probably just a couple of weeks with season 4.
Yes,
Thanks.
exciting.
Woohoo! Look at us.